Okay, so now we're actually going to go ahead and talk about stem changing verbs. So the first thing is a little bit easier. They go ahead and tell you that AR and ER stem changing verbs have the same pattern as the present progressive. I mean the present indicative. Oh, I'm thinking present progressive here. Okay, so what that means, if you remember in the present tense when we change stem changers, the stem change happened everywhere but nosotros and vosotros. Okay, and so that's going to be the same scenario, same stem change when we're doing the present subjunctive. So let's deal with these AR and ER stem changers before we look at our IRs and our IR verbs. Okay, I went and looked at our practice that I was going to do, and actually it has them all mixed up, so I'm going to have to go ahead and talk about the IR. So ARs and ERs have the same pattern as the present indicative. The change is going to happen, whatever change it was, be it E to IE or O to UE or E to I, the change is going to happen everywhere but for nosotros and vosotros. For an IR verb, the change is going to happen everywhere, but it's two different changes. In the they use the present stem change in the everywhere, but nosotros and vosotros get the preterite stem change. Okay, so for example, sentir is an E to IE in the present tense. So in the middle, it's going to be an E to IE for yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, ellos, ellas, ustedes. But for nosotros and vosotros, in the preterite tense, it's an E to I, and that's the spelling change that's going to happen in the preterite. So this is where things get a little tricky. It's not that it's hard, but it's like you have to go back and review everything you've learned up to this point, because it's asking you to remember what you did. Your spelling changes in the present indicative, spelling changes in the preterite, and if you can't remember what's irregular and all of this stuff, you're going to have trouble, because you have to remember. It's kind of like math. If you can't add 2 plus 2, you can't do multiplication. Okay. So they have both the present and the preterite. The preterite change occurs in the nosotros and vosotros forms. Okay, the other persons follow the present tense pattern. Okay, so hopefully we can remember it. Let's go do some practice and see how we do. Okay, so here we've got Juan me recomienda que poder pedir bistec. So Juan's going to be asking that I ask for bistec, pedir. Okay. Pedir. Okay, so pedir is lucky because it's an E to I stem changer. If you look over here, it's an E to I stem changer for both the preterite and the present tense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my ending. I am going to change my E to an I because it's a stem changer. It's an IR verb, so I'm going to add an A here. Okay, el profesor quiere que sus estudiantes recordar, preferir todo el vocabulario para el examen. Okay, so he wants his students, and the students, let's actually make it skinnier. The students happen to be the subject, okay, and he wants them to remember all of the vocabulary for the test, so we write in recordar. Recordar happens to be an O to UE stem changer. So what I'm going to do, because it's for they, this is an AR verb, so remember if it's an AR verb, that the change happens everywhere but the nosotros and the vosotros. So I am going to have to make my change. I'm going to get rid of my AR. I'm going to change my O to a UE. And then I'm going to add my ending. It's recordar, so recuerden. Okay, and I'll put that up there, that recordar. was an O to UE verb. Okay, down here, el entrenador quiere que su equipo perder jugar bien. Well, I would assume he doesn't want his team to lose. He's probably going to want them to play well. So I'm going to put in jugar. This is an AR verb. Okay, so it is a stem changer. Jugar is a U to UE stem changer. And since it's an AR verb, the change is going to happen everywhere but for nosotros and vosotros. So I'm going to get rid of my AR and I am going to make my stem change U to UE. And then because it's an AR verb, I am going to add, and now this gets tricky because I am going to add an E. But jugar has that hard G sound, that G sound. Well, if I just add an E there, I get a H sound. I still want my G sound, so jugué has to get another U to keep your G sound. Juegue, okay? Which I don't know if you can see that J very well. Let's see if I can't. Let me rewrite it just so you can see it a little better. Maybe it's just how the J, there we go. Juegue. Okay, mi mamá no quiere que nosotros, so nosotros is the subject of the second part of the sentence, the one for which we're conjugating our verb. So mi mamá no quiere que nosotros costar dormir en el sofá. Probably dormir, okay? Dormir. Now this is where it gets tricky. Dormir is an IR verb. It's an O to UE in the present tense, and it's an O to U in the preterite tense. Well, for nosotros, we should be using the preterite tense, so we are going to change it to just a plain U. Okay? So and then it's for nosotros, so if it's an IR, I'm going to add an AMOS, dormamos, okay? So a lot of times you'll see this written, something to this effect, or they might just write, I think they'll write this, U-E-U. If you see this by a verb, this means that your O changes to a UE. The first one is for the present tense, the second one is for the preterite, okay? And you remember if you see that you're gonna do the present for all subjects, but nosotros and vosotros, for them, you're gonna do the preterite one, okay? Los clientes le piden al mesero que servir, pensar la ensalada primero. Probably servir because that's what they do, right? The waiters serve the food. Again, what I've got going on here is it's an IR verb, but servir is actually an E to I in both. So I'm going to change my E to an I. And then it's the waiter or he, so then I'm going to add an I, sirva. Okay, and I will put that here that it's an I. Okay. Necesitamos que la clase empezar pensar temprano, probably start early. So I'm going to put empezar. Okay, good news, it's an AR verb. So it's an E to IE stem changer, and that change is only going to happen, it's going to happen for everywhere but nosotros and vosotros. In this case, since it's the class that starts early, the change is going to happen. Get rid of that AR. And then what I would add is an E, right? Because it's an AR verb, so I gotta add the opposite. I'm gonna add an E. Now I've got that problem. I've got an E next to a Z. I can't have that. I've got to change my Z to a C. Empiece. Okay. El agente de viajes nos sugiere que, so he suggests that we pedir sentir asientos de ventanilla, so that we ask for window seats. So that's pedir. Again, we're lucky because pedir, even though it's an IR, it's the same stem change in the present and the preterite. It's an I. So I am going to get rid of my IR. I'm going to make that E and I, And then because it's an IR, I'm going to add the opposite endings, AMOS. So he suggests that we ask for, insisto en que tú devolver esos zapatos a la tienda. Probably I'm insisting that you return them. So we've got devolver. Okay, it's an O-to-U-E. And so it's an ER verb, which means that if it's going to get that O to UE stem change, except for nosotros and vosotros. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to change that O to a UE. And then what I would add is the opposite ending. If it's an ER verb, my opposite ending is an AS, devuelvas. Insisto en que tú devuelvas. Espero que Juanito no poder la mochila otra vez. So I'm hoping he doesn't lose it again, which is perder. Perder is an ER verb, so that means we only have to worry about stem changes everywhere, but for nosotros and vosotros, it's an E to IE, so I'm going to get rid of my ending, I'm going to change my E to an IE, and I'm going to add an A, pierda. Okay, Sargita está enamorado de Marcos, desea que él la soñar querer también, probably that he loves her too, so I'm going to put querer. Querer is an E to IE. It's an ER verb, so I don't have to worry about a change for nosotros, vosotros, but since I'm doing él is my subject, I am going to change that E to an IE. I'm going to get rid of this ending, and if she wants that he loves her, we want him to be doing the loving, it would be quiera, the opposite ending. Okay. La profesora de español nos recomienda que repetir, calentar el vocabulario muchas veces, probably repeat, right? Repetir. Repetir is an E to I. It is an IR verb, so the stem change is supposed to happen for nosotros and vosotros. It is an E to I in both the present indicative and the preterite tense, so therefore I'm going to change that E to an I. I'm going to get rid of the IR, and it's for nosotros, so repetamos. So, la profesora de español nos recomienda que repitamos el vocabulario muchas veces. Okay, the last one, Teresa quiere que vosotros hervir el pescado en este sartén. Well, hervir is to boil and freír is to fry, and since you're using a frying pan, I'm assuming freír, so freír. Okay, it is an IR, so we are going to change it to an I, que frías. So Teresa quiere que vosotros frías el pescado en el sartén.